Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and I have another lens to test out. This time around, it's a lens from a company called Yongnuo, which is a company. I've had some remote flash triggers made by this company for years, and I've always been pretty happy with them, but this is the first time I've ever used one of their lenses, and I've learned that Yongnuo means forever promise. So let's take a look at it. It came in this box right here. It's the 16mm f1.8 lens for Sony APS-C cameras, and I love that focal length. 16 millimeters will give you 24 millimeters full frame equivalent, which is, it's not too wide, it's not too narrow, it's kind of just right for a walk around lens. And I've already gotten it out of this box, and here's what it looks like right here. It has a plastic lens hood, which is nice. It's not too big and it's not too small, and it clicks right on there, fits just really nicely. Everything about this lens from a build point of view feels really, really good. Has a nice pinch style lens cap, which is 58 millimeters, 58 millimeter filter thread, and has some nice writing on the front of the lens showing the 58 millimeter filter thread. And it has a minimum focus distance. This is a really neat feature of this lens. It has a minimum focus distance of 0.17 meters. So that's 17 centimeters or 0.56 feet, that means it'd be just a little bit more than 6 inches. And that's not 6 inches from the front of the lens. That's 6 inches from the focal plane, 6 inches from about right here on your camera. So you can get crazy close with this thing, which is a really nice feature on an ultra wide lens, because you can get really close to something and have the background nice and out of focus, especially with that 1.8 aperture, and have some really nice subject separation, even on this wide lens. It's unusual for a lens this wide to have such a fast aperture. This is f1.8, so it's nice and fast. You would expect a lens with that aperture to be pretty expensive, but I believe this lens is under $300 for the United States market, which is outstanding, especially for a lens that is this focal length and this aperture and this fantastic minimum focus distance. Let's talk about the way the lens feels. It feels metal. It's got some weight to it. It's not heavy, but it's not light and plasticky feeling at all. And it doesn't have many switches on it. It has one button, which is you can program it for focus hold or many other things inside your Sony camera body. And it has an autofocus manual focus switch. And that's really it as far as controls, unless you count this super buttery smooth manual focus ring. It's focused by wire, so you're not actually moving any internal components when you move it around, but it is buttery smooth. It feels really good. And the body of the lens is metal. There's also a USB-C port right here that you can use to do firmware updates right there on the lens. But it has, I don't know if you can see, it has a rubber insert that you can plug in to the USB-C port, and it covers it. So it keeps it out of the weather, which is really nice. I like having a lens with a USB-C port, but I always worry about them allowing weather into your lens, which could damage it. And speaking of weather sealing, back here on the back, there's a rubber gasket that goes all the way around, which is what I would kind of consider to be something that you would see on a premium lens. But this lens at under $300 US I wouldn't consider it to be a premium lens, but it has a lot of features that you would expect to see on a premium lens, including that fast aperture and that great minimum focus distance. But this weather sealing is nice as well. And it's a metal connector for your lens. And let's see how that does. Let's take my front cap off of my A6700, which may look different than yours. Mine has the small rig cage on it, which I love that thing, so I always keep it on. It has a nice white dot to line up, and it connects easily, and there's no play. It's not too tight. I've had lenses that are too tight, and you feel like putting it on, you're damaging your camera. And I've had lenses that are too loose, they feel wobbly, but this one hooks up just perfectly, and it looks pretty smart on this A6700. Let's put the lens hood on here. There we go. Looks fantastic. Looks really, really good. And I'm going to take it out today and do lots of photography with it and see how it does. See what it's like. I'm going to take pictures with it wide open at f1.8, and I'm going to take some stop down stuff as well, and we'll get a feel for this. I don't do a lot of pixel peeping and charts and graphs. When I do a lens review, I just take it out and see what it feels like and what kind of shots I can get. So let's get into that now. Here's a photo I made of my daughter with the 16mm lens. This is wide open at f1.8 ISO 400 and 1/60th of a second. Looks nice and sharp, and the background is nicely blurred out. The next day we went to the local goat restaurant. It's nearby our home, and I made a photograph of it at f5, 1/2000th of a second. Looks like it works fairly nice for architecture photography. And over on the left-hand side of the building, I also made this shot. Of course, I don't have straight lines here because I'm incorrectly angling the camera straight up. But if you're not looking for straight lines, this is what it would look like. And of course, getting further back, you can get the lines straight. But the most important thing is it's very sharp and has nice colors. Inside the local goat, I handed Heather the camera, and she made this shot of me wide open at f1.8 1/60th of a second. And I did some food photography. We had these deviled eggs that were absolutely delicious as an appetizer. Now, I shot all these food shots wide open at f1.8, and I probably would have done better shooting it at f4, and I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. Here's Heather's Caesar salad that I made a photograph of. Thought it looked beautiful. I had this bison meatloaf that was incredible. Heather had a steak, and it certainly looks delicious. And my daughter had a bacon egg burger that looked fantastic. Back home wide open, I focused as close as I could. I used the minimum focus distance on this Sony body cap, and this is wide open at f1.8. And I made the same shot, stopped down to f4, and it looks definitely better. And I think probably I would have done better at f4 on those food photographs as well, although they were not at minimum focus distance like this shot is. Okay, let's try some video. I've got the A6700 now with the 16mm f1.8. I'm shooting wide open at 1.8, and let's come into the frame and see if it finds me. Yep, it found me relatively quickly. I don't have the camera set to rack focus really fast in video because I don't like that look, but it does seem to be finding me pretty good. And I'm going to move around the frame, go back pretty far, and come up, see if it still got me. It does. Yeah, that's really good. And this thing is focusing extremely quietly. As a matter of fact, I can't hear a sound of any variety coming from it as it moves focus back and forth to keep me in focus. So that's really nice. It should be good as a video lens because it's perfectly quiet, and it appears to have some nice picture quality, even wide open at f1.8 as we are right now. Later in the evening, Heather and I went downtown, met up with my friend and photographer buddy Ray Soldano for the Chattanooga New Year's Eve celebration. So Ray was there. I made this shot of him at f2, and I made this shot of Heather at f2. Heather was going to do photography with her Canon R7 and the 70-200 that she has there. Ray was using the Z9 and his 35-150 Tamron lens. I used this lens and made a few shots of food trucks as they were getting set up. This is kind of before things got going. But I also used my Samyang 35-150. And if you want to see those shots, Ray's photography page and Heather Boyd's photography page and Phil Thatch photography page on Facebook has all of our shots. But on this video, I'll just be featuring the shots that I made with the 16mm f1.8. Here were some people doing some line dancing kind of before the show started. There was a DJ up there in all that fog and light on the stage. There were also some fire performers, and I made this up-close shot at near minimum focus distance of the bottle of fire that kind of gets their fire going before they perform. This is also wide open at 1.8. And here is one of the fire performers that is there in front of the stage. The DJ was on the stage, and the fire performers were in front of the stage, and we were right by the fire performers. And as you can see, the lens does very well. There's a lot of fog in the air. They run smoke machines to make the lights look better at these events, and that's why there's a lot of haze in this shot. It's because of all the fog in the air, but still I thought the lens captured this image well. Now, a local band called Strung Like a Horse, which is a fantastic band. I highly recommend catching them. They tour all over the country, and if they're ever coming to your town, you should definitely check them out. But as you can see, even with all the crazy light that's involved with music photography, this 16mm f1.8 lens, wide open at 1.8, does well for concert photography. And here's another shot with it. And of course, I was switching back and forth because the only shot I could get from where I was standing were full band shots. But my other lens that I brought was the 35-150, and it wasn't wide enough to get a full band shot. So this lens was definitely useful to me to cover this gig. And this is the final shot that I made of Strung Like a Horse, the final full band shot. I was really happy with the way the lens performed in lots of different conditions, as I demonstrated in this video. All right, thanks for watching this quick review of the Yongnuo 16mm f1.8 lens for Sony APS-C cameras. I'm really happy with this lens and thought I was able to get some pretty nice shots with it. And if you like this sort of content, if you like this content, reach down, hit the thumbs up. That really helps me out. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see some more. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.